wondering, where is everybody? This is awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to canfitpro's Black Fitness Experience webinar as we celebrate Black History Month. We are so excited that you are all here with us to help with this very important conversation and topic that unfortunately is within the fitness industry. So first of all, as you guys come in, I want you to tell us, put it in the chat, where you're watching from and why you decided to show up for this webinar today. Oh, I'm excited too, Beth. I'm really, really excited. And Beth is from Uxbridge, and she wants to learn to be a better ally. Thank you so much, Beth. Come on, what about the rest of you that are in here? We can see there's a bunch of participants in here already. Don't be shy. Tell us why you're here and where you're watching from. Anybody? Anybody? Thank you very much. Thank you. No, you're not the only one. You're not the only one, but maybe people are just shy to share. Okay, here is Blenda, okay, from Scarborough, and she's new to canfitpro. Well, welcome, yay. You are in a great community. This is awesome, yay, welcome. Welcome, that's awesome. Anybody else? What about the other ones? Come on.
We have someone from Quebec.
Oh, you got someone from Quebec?
And looking at questions and answers.
Oh, you're looking at the Q&A. Okay, oh, to be a better person. Oh, thank you, Marianne. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, well, while you guys are continuing and you're posting where you're from and why you're here, I want to start off with a little bit of, a little bit of housekeeping, okay? So again, I do want to welcome everybody who decided to register and show up for today's really, really important webinar, Black Fitness Experience. Now, in this session, we will discuss the fitness culture and its effects on race, diversity, and inclusion. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Samantha Moptihuin. I've been around for a little while. I am a fitness entrepreneur. I'm also an author, an educator, mentor, and media influencer, and I will be your host for the duration of this webinar. But first of all, I also want to go with some housekeeping. So as this is a webinar, you do not have the option to speak. However, we do encourage you as much as you can to please use the chat box and ask questions, share ideas, and connect as much as you can during this session. Now, closed captioning has also been enabled in this session. You can turn this off by selecting the CC closed captioning icon and hiding the subtitles. Okay, and please put any questions that you have, because at the end, I'm going to be saving about 10 or 15 minutes to answer these questions that maybe have not been answered during this wonderful session. Okay, so now let me get this all started up. So I'm not sure if any of you checked out our panelists before or once you registered. I certainly did, and now I follow them on Instagram. So our panelists bring a wealth of knowledge and experience from the fitness, yoga and therapy, and diversity and inclusion space. They are all going to share their personal experiences of their fitness journey as a minority and its impact on their decisions, focus, and careers. Now, like I said, I'll be leaving time at the end to answer questions. So please, as they come up, before you forget them, put them in the chat box and they will compile at the end, and I will take as much time as I can that I'm able to answer those for you, or to have the panelists answer them. So first of all, it is my pleasure to introduce our panelists. So Adriana Crawford. So Adriana is a Toronto-based yoga and meditation teacher. She's also an entrepreneur and a writer. In May 2020, she created the Black Yoga Society from her struggle to find Black-owned yoga studios, healing spaces, and esoteric products. Her goal is to promote well-being, mindfulness, and self-care to BIPOC and beyond. Welcome, Adriana. Next, we have Carl Carter. Now, Carl is an associate pro trainer with canfitpro. He is also a registered massage therapist, personal training specialist, and a massage therapist instructor at Oxford College, who has a commitment to health and fitness. Carl is a graduate from the Canadian College of Massage and Hydrotherapy and certified through canfitpro. Carl has worked with a variety of clients, from expectant mothers to athletes and seniors. Carl is also the owner of the Apex Health and Fitness. They offer personal training, massage therapy, chiropractic services, and physiotherapy. Carl is, get this, a 2010, 2011, 2012, 2018, 2020, and 2021 Reader's Choice Award winner for massage therapy and personal training. Welcome, Carl, and I need a massage. So welcome. And last, but certainly not least, I want you all to welcome Portia Boston. So Portia has been highlighted by publications such as Well and Good. She's also a certified fitness expert and diversity and inclusion educator based in New York City. She is a NASM certified personal trainer, master bar and Pilates instructor, pre and postnatal specialist, and certified holistic health coach. She also works with and consults fitness and wellness businesses on DEI and has delivered keynote speeches and trainings for organizations like WIFA, Women in Fitness Association, Pure Bar, Cycle Bar, the Talent Hack, as well as for many other boutique fitness studios and organizations across North America and the world. She is also the creator of the Inclusive Fitness Roadmap, a self-paced course designed for fitness and wellness professionals to help them create more inclusive environments and businesses. Welcome, Portia. We're so happy to have you here. Wow. So now that I'm out of breath, let's dive into our first question. I'm so excited to get started. So here's my first question. Now, for those who are interested in getting started in the fitness industry, but are scared due to being a minority, what kind of advice can you provide? How can they get started to gain the courage to keep moving forward and not give up? And first, I'm going to ask Adriana.
Hi.
Hi.
So, in my opinion, speaking more specifically from, the yoga lens, because that's my expertise, is to just do it because you're a minority, especially if it's something that you're really passionate about and you keep getting called to. I became a yoga teacher for the reason of just never seeing myself reflected, walking into studios, not really seeing anyone who looked like me. And I've been practicing yoga for about 10, 11 years now, and have rarely, I've had a Black yoga teacher, I think twice in 10 years. And it was a big space in between experiencing that. So I was actually volunteering at a studio in Toronto, and a Black yoga teacher came in as a substitute for another class that I was taking. And right after the class, I ran up to her. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for you. Like, where have you been? Like, I just started firing questions. Like, where can I find other Black teachers? And, expressing like, I want to be a teacher too. Like, how do you get into it? And that was my catalyst for jumping into it. Cause I'm like, oh my God, I finally can see someone reflected that looks like me. Cause I had a past Black male yoga teacher, like back in like high school, which was really fun and really cool to take his classes. He was a great teacher. But yeah, and after I got certified and stuff, I found her on Instagram, and I'm like, you are the reason why I became a yoga teacher. So, you can be that catalyst for someone because you're just passionate about it, and you just show up one day, and you never know like how just showing up is gonna really affect someone's life. So
Absolutely.
That would be my point of view.
Oh, that story just warms my heart. Is that the person that I'm thinking of? Is it Trisha that you're talking about?
It's not Trisha. Her name is
it wasn't
Liz.
Trisha. Liz. Okay.
Wellness. So follow her on Instagram.
Liz, I'm gonna follow her too. That's awesome. And that's actually true. I mean, Trisha, she's a mutual colleague, is the first Black yoga instructor I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, of course there are, but I like seeing absolutely more. So now, Portia, what about you? I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I think actually Adriana started alluding to this a little bit, but I think if you can, one of the most powerful thing, and not just for Black fitness professionals, but I think anybody in any sort of marginalized group, would be to seek out a mentor or seek out somebody who is doing what you want to do, who also looks like you. And obviously that takes a little bit more work. It takes some homework, you know, to find people who aren't as well represented, but they are out there, right? So I think finding someone who, you know, you can ask, you know, their advice mindfully, of course, without taking too much of their time, you know, finding any resources that they have. And if, you know, this is something that's accessible to you, perhaps even looking into, like, you know, their coaching or their, you know, mentorship programs, if some exist, because that is, you know, a resource that might be available. But that's something that was greatly helpful to me, is having, you know, mentors who could walk me through this process, who also looked like me and would be able to, you know, share a lot of my experiences. And not every single person who was a mentor to me looked exactly like me, but they did share some sort of, you know, marginalized experience, and that has been extremely helpful. So that's one thing I know that has been, you know, incredibly impactful in my, you know, journey as a professional, and definitely something that I would recommend. And I'm also a mentor now, you know, to lots of other people. So definitely something I would think about.
Yeah, and that must feel really good for you that you could help mentor and help other people who are nervous or not quite sure, you know, how do you get started, right? So thank you very much. I love those answers. Okay, so here's my next question. So what are some barriers that you faced in the fitness industry that did or had the potential to limit your progress or recognition as a fitness professional, you know, and an influential voice? Like, what are the dangers of allowing these barriers to continue existing in fitness right now? And Portia, I'm going to come back to you with that one.
Sure. So in my experience, and I'd really be curious to hear what the other panelists have to say about this. I come from like the Pilates world, the bar world, and for a very, very long time, that world has mostly been represented by thin, able-bodied, cisgendered white women. And I would say that's probably also true in the yoga space as well. There's a lot of overlap there. And so what would happen for me, not only because of my, you know, my racial background, but also because of my body type and body shape. I'm an athlete. You know, I have a very athletic sort of body type. I would kind of be pigeonholed. So here's a little anecdote. When I was first looking for fitness jobs, you know, I'm also a dancer. A lot of my background is in performing. You know, I studied ballet professionally and all of that good stuff. When I was looking for bar teacher jobs in New York City, by the way, one of the most like diverse cities in the entire world, I found at this one particular audition at a very famous gym that I'm not going to name, but a very famous big box like luxury gym. I went through the bar audition process to become a bar teacher. And essentially what happened was they came back to me and said, hey, we don't have any spots right now for bar teachers, but would you be interested in teaching boxing or a HIIT class? I've never taught a boxing class in my life. I know nothing about shadow boxing. Like I'm a ballet dancer. But because I think there at that time, that's where all of the teachers of color were, and Black women in particular were either teaching strength formats or HIIT classes or boxing classes. That's where they felt most comfortable putting me. And also because of the people that were making the hiring decisions and who were in positions of management were also all white folks, it was hard for them to kind of see me in doing what I normally do, even if I was very, very good at it. And so I have always sort of been haunted by that, in my experience of being kind of pigeonholed into certain modalities because of what I look like. And it's been like, it's been a barrier that I've had to break through over and over again and be very persistent with. And it's something that I'm actively trying to change as a dancer, as a bar teacher, as a Pilates instructor. So that's been my personal experience. And again, having mentors, people to talk through this with, has been extremely helpful, and just less, kind of anxiety inducing, to help walk me through this whole thing.
Yeah, I can certainly see that, because when I think of bar, anytime I've seen, on TV or even at conferences or anything, see bar or Pilates, they always describe it as Pilates is the one that you want to be long and lean. That's how they even describe it, right? So you're going to be thin and long and lean, you're lengthening. And so this visual is usually a white, very thin, tall woman. Carl, I would love to hear your take on this.
So barriers for me, I haven't really hit any barriers when it comes to race, right? But barriers is the type of barriers that I've came in contact with, is like the ability to adapt, right? And being in the fitness industry, sometimes we become complacent in trying to better ourselves, basically. So for me, a type of barrier that I would have is like adapting to new technology, right? So as a fitness individual, like technology is constantly changing. Social media is constantly changing, right? And I think surrounding yourself with people that might be better than you in certain areas, whether it's social media or technology or things like that. Like on my team, I have a team of eight personal trainers. And one of my trainers, she actually went to school to be a social media, like she does social media stuff, and I hired her to do my social media. So for the Apex Health and Fitness page and the Apex Carl page, she helps me with that. So you can't be an expert in all areas of what you do. You have to surround yourself with people to help to uplift you, basically.
Yeah, amen to that. Totally agree. Totally agree. The second that you can start sending things off that are not your expertise, because you'll waste a lot of time trying to learn something when you should just be focusing on what you're good at. So I totally agree. I totally agree. Okay, so here's my next question. So what recommendations or ideas do you have for business owners and operators that can support the equity conversation for Black and racialized fitness professionals today? And Carl, I am going to go back to you with this one.
Well, great. So I would say get in the community, right? Get in the community of people that might be need like a mentor. We talked about getting a mentor for yourselves, right? Like when I first started out, I got a mentor. I looked at somebody that was like where I wanted to be, and I wanted to know where he got, like what steps he took to kind of get to where he was. There's a few mentors I've had over the years. I've been doing personal training for about 17 years now. So what I've done in the past few years was I got together with a probation office that's close to where we are, and we work with like at-risk youths. And what we do is we're actually right in the process of developing a program where they come in and they do like tutoring. We do a mentorship program, and we also we do like a personal training type, or like a boot camp type of thing. So I think get in the community and try to find people that that need the help, basically.
Thank you. Adriana, what about you?
I'm kind of reiterating what Carl said and what Portia alluded to in the last question. It's just hiring more racialized folks, especially in decision-making roles. I think that's like the biggest barrier. And I do marketing for a bigger yoga company that has a big stakehold, but everyone in their executive team is a white male. And I keep pushing. I'm like, you need to hire diverse people for your decisions, because you're wondering, why are we not growing? Why are we not able to reach these different markets? And I'm like, well, you don't really realize what unconscious biases you have or you're holding on to, because you're in an echo chamber of like-minded people who have the same biases as you. So that's why you need diverse people in decision-making roles. And that's diversity in race, diversity in body type, diversity in sexuality, gender, etc., across the board. Because you might think like, oh, we're doing great. But then when you hire someone who is racialized or, you know, diverse or just thinks differently than you, then you get like the real tea on how your equity and equality efforts are really being perceived by the community. So when you have unique, diverse perspectives, you're able to work and collaborate with, collaborate with them and actually create better products and services as well, and kind of seeing your own blind spots that you might not have noticed before.
Totally. I totally agree. And also, I mean, they have to understand though, doing that, it's going to be uncomfortable, right? But we all know in order to grow, I mean, we tell this to our clients all the time, there has to be a level of discomfort. So yes, you have to put your biases aside, and like, it doesn't matter how many books you read or podcasts or how many Black friends you have, that doesn't really matter. It's unless you're actually willing to do something uncomfortable and saying, okay, I don't know all the things, so maybe I'll bring somebody in who actually has lived experiences that'll help me better, right? So yeah, thank you so much for that. Okay, so here's my next question. So I think, I mean, we can all agree, especially, you know, since George Floyd and now pandemic and all these things, like and everything that's just going on right now in the world, we all want to be better humans, right? We want to learn, we want to walk the walk, but not everyone talks the talk, right? So as systemic racism still plagues our community, how can those in the fitness industry who are still learning make changes to be better humans and fit professionals? So Portia, I'm going to ask you first.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest steps and most impactful steps that particularly folks who are in decision-making roles, who are in management positions, if you are part of a larger organization, one of the most impactful things that you can do is consider investing in a DEI professional, investing in DEI programs and consultancy to really get to, you know, the strategy to actually be able to implement, programs and systems and procedures that actually effectively create change. Because if you are sort of shooting in the dark, or again, kind of like Adriana was alluding to, it just becomes an echo chamber of people who all look the same and have the same exact experiences. And that's not going to create change, nor is it going to affect the environment that you're already in. So one of the most impactful things that you can do is consider investing in D&I programming, and not just one time, right? Not just a 3-month project, but something that is ongoing, something that is much longer term, because you need strategy, right? You need an expert, just like for any other piece of your business, you need strategy to help you actually implement, certain behaviors and certain changes. And I think with that, a lot of times I have the conversation with people about budget. Obviously, I understand that budgets exist, how budgets work, but there is room for whatever it is that we all prioritize, right? And if you want to prioritize inclusivity and ethics, then there is room, right? For investing in some sort of consultancy or strategy program. I think for folks who are not in a decision-making role or not a part of management, or maybe people who are self-employed, individuals, I think that the first step is similar, but perhaps first it's just, finding resources that you really resonate with, making sure that you're diversifying, who comes up in your Instagram feed and your social media, right? Find folks who are talking specifically about diversity in fitness, because there are lots of us. There's more than just me. I talk about it specifically, but there are many, 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 many of us, talking about these issues, who have been talking about these issues for many years. So find somebody that you really resonate with, who you like their content and you feel that it's valuable, and then start to look into what resources they may have. A lot of folks have resources for free. And that can be a really great entry point to if you don't have, if a paid programming, if a paid sort of program or course is not available to you at this point, they may have a book list. They may have, a free training that you can look into. They may have a blog post, right, that you could read that could start to open you up. So I would recommend across the board, everybody consider investing in, learning, consider investing in education. And if not, just do a little bit more homework to find resources that are more easily available.
Thank you. And I just have to ask, because I'm sure there's a few people who are probably watching and maybe they're a little bit too shy to ask, what is DEI?
Sure. So DEI just stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. A lot of people will call it D&I, which is diversity and inclusion. Some people have DEI and B, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. It all kind of means the same thing to me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, so next question. So we hear, especially in the last, I would say year, we hear a lot more about microaggressions, but I know a lot of people aren't even sure what they are. So I have two questions for you. So number one is, what is a microaggression? And two, what are some that you faced and how did you overcome them? And I'm going to ask Adriana first.
Oh, dang. I totally had to get the Oxford definition of it, because I was like, oh man, I don't know how to eloquently put it, and being like, when this person comes up to me and says girl and I don't know them. That's one of the examples. So microaggression is a term used for commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental slights, whether intentional or unintentional. So that's the Oxford definition of it. A couple examples that have happened to me. I remember when I did my yin yoga training, and for the first weekend of the training, I did it online, and then the second part I did it in person. So I'd come in after walking up those 2 flights of stairs with my suitcase, because yin has a lot of props. So come in, and standing at the front, being like, "Hey, where's everyone?" And the teacher is sitting with the group of the other students, and she looks at me like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like,
ooh.
I'm here for this training. You think I just showed up off the streets exactly at 10 a.m. when it started? Come on. So, and I think back, I'm like, is it because she didn't see me there beforehand, or was she trying to be shady? But I've heard some things in the past that happened to other teachers who went there, and same teacher was kind of shady to them. So could be the latter. But that's an instance where I'm just it's not like I'm not paying to be here, but okay, I guess we can have an attitude. And more, I guess, recent things that happened this summer. I did a lot of markets because with BYS we have yoga mats and stuff, and if I had $1 for the amount of usually, actually exclusively, it would be white males that would come up to my booth and ask me, what's Black Yoga Society? What's the purpose of this? Why do you need Black Yoga Society? And I'm just I try to educate them. I'm like, okay, this is why I started it. This is our mission statement. But they just didn't really care to hear it, to be honest. It's like, oh, that sounds horrible, and blah, blah, blah. And just trying to argue with me about it. So the end, I just end the conversation being like, if you don't understand it, then it's not for you. And I'm not going to continue trying to explain it to you when you don't want to hear it. So it was kind of more of reasons to save my own peace and not, get out of character in front of a market of, hundreds of people. But that's, a few that I've experienced recently that I'm just oh, man.
Yeah. Especially when they come up with that attitude. It's you don't even want to learn. So what are you doing? Why are you here? Go away. Sorry, am I allowed to say that? Go away.
It's you came up to me. I didn't call you over.
Exactly.
You had an attitude with me.
Yes, exactly. Carl, what about you? What have you experienced?
Yeah, so for me, I guess simply put, for microaggression, I think it's like an unconscious bias of somebody towards somebody, right? I could list a whole bunch, but I'll just tell you two. So like I've been on my own, like running my business for the past like 12 years. And I remember the last place I worked at, there was about 5 owners, and all of them are great. But as I was leaving the door on my last day, one of the owners came to me and he said in front of everybody, he said, Carl, when most people go out on their own, they fail. So when you fail, you could come back and have your job, basically, right? And everyone was like, wow, that's a good way to kind of set them off. But for me, I'm the type of person, when you say things like that, it's motivating for me. So every time I have, right? So every time I have a bad day, a bad week when it comes to business, a bad month, I remember that and I try to prove them wrong, right? So that was like one scenario. And then another scenario was years ago, I went to it was a clinic to get a job for, like, as a massage therapist. And then the chiropractor asked me, like, what's the split that you want? And I said, let's start off with 65-35, and then eventually I like to go to 70-30. And then he was like, no, like massage therapists don't get that, right? And then a few years later, I was doing like a trade show, a health trade show, and he was in the booth right next to me. So I was setting up the booth with a few of my other like people that are working with me, personal trainers, massage therapists, chiropractors. And then so he turns to me and says, Carl, who are you here with, right? Like which business are you with? I said, well, with Apex Health and Fitness. He said, well, who's the owner, right? I said, I am. And he looked at me and he was like, he was shocked, right? But it just made me feel good because he thought like I would never be able to get to this point. You know what I mean? So those are two examples for me that of microaggression.
And I totally relate to that. And I've always said, as soon as you even try and doubt me, that is enough fire to just like send me going, oh yeah. And sometimes I probably shouldn't do that because it's at my own risk, but anyways, but I'm driven the same way. Yeah. And yeah, it's, you all alluded, or actually, Portia, I want to ask you too, but we can all say that there's been numerous times, but there's always those few that really stand out, and that we'll never forget, and that'll just keep us driving forward. So Portia, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I like the other panelists. I mean, there's probably not enough time, to list all of the microaggressions that I've experienced. I mean, just some off of the top of my head, like, when I've worked at bar studios or fitness studios where there was like one other Black female instructor constantly being confused with one another, by clients or by managers. Oh, Sojourner, I mean, Portia, I'm so sorry. And it's like, I mean, we look absolutely nothing alike. So that's always super frustrating. But unfortunately, I think a very universal experience for anybody who looks like me, who's like been in a predominantly white space. I think also like people assuming that I know how to do certain things, like assuming that or assuming that I have knowledge about certain things that I don't, like assuming that I have knowledge about like this, dance style or this like particular like artist or this type of music, like when I don't, or assuming that I'm able to do this thing or that thing because I'm Black. And it's like, no, once again, I don't know how, like, I don't know how to do this dance style. Like on TikTok, I'm literally a ballet dancer. Like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's things like that, but something that I think is really important for everyone to think about is like, I think we have to be careful with the idea that like, that microaggressions need to be overcome by marginalized folks. It's not my responsibility to overcome like your prejudice and your bias. That's entirely on you, right? There's nothing that I have to do. because obviously you're making a judgment, you're making an assumption based on something about my identity that I cannot change and have no control over. So I don't have to overcome anything. And I just want to release the burden for all racialized folks to feel that they need to do something. And, for you, Samantha and Carl, like you're extremely highly motivated people, but not everybody is that way, in personality, type. And I just want to release the burden, for marginalized folks, that you have to do something to like overcome this, this situation or this injustice, when it has nothing to do with you. It's entirely up to everyone else to overcome their biases.
Yeah, amen. And honestly, I think one of the reasons why I am just so motivated and driven is, well, number one, I'm old. I've been around, so I haven't always been like this, for sure. And if I had $1 for every time I was asked if I was from Jamaica, and I just finally looked at somebody, I said, I wish I could have somewhere to go when it's freaking freezing here. My dad is Black from Philadelphia and my mom is white from Quebec. So take your choice. Like there's nowhere tropical, but if I would be a millionaire, if I took $1 for every time, I was like, where? I wish. So yes, I totally agree. It is not our job at all. It's not our job for a lot of things, but absolutely is not our job to get over it and get used to it. And don't be so sensitive and all the other things that we hear all the time. Absolutely. Amen. Thank you very much. Okay, here's my next question. So what steps can be taken on social platforms to make the communication more inclusive and accessible? So this is a big one. I think I'm going to ask Adriana first.
I would say don't just post diverse people when it's an awareness month. That's a big one for me. Like you can post different people all year round. It doesn't just have to be 1 month of the year. You can always post them. I think, and something that I push to with the company I work for, is use that awareness month to highlight the content you posted throughout the year. If you want to do that, be like, look, we did all these wonderful things throughout the year. Here is like a collection of them together, something, like don't just do it for that month, kind of just do it all the year round, and you can use that month to showcase all the wonderful things you did. And I would also say search accessibility recommendations on Google for your social media platforms, because there is different things with like Instagram to make it more accessible for people who have like seeing or hearing disabilities, and also use the alt image text, just from a marketing standpoint, alt image text on your image that you post on your website or anything like that, because Google actually rewards that, and it also helps people who can't see the images or anything, and it helps to explain what's in the image. So if you have someone doing yoga, be like woman posing in warrior one yoga pose, and that will read out to people who aren't able to see it. So that's just some little tidbits from the marketing side of ways to make your site more accessible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Carl, what about you? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I would say be more engaging with your posts. Be careful what you post, right? Be conscious what you post. And like a lot of things that we post may be offensive to people, right? So be very aware of what you post and put on your page, what you put on other people's pages, and be more aware.
Awareness for sure. And Portia, what about you?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting question. Like in so much of my consulting, so much of the conversations that I have are around social media. How do I show that I'm this without, being virtue signaling or being performative? And, I just want to clarify that social media should really be the last kind of frontier when it comes to your diversity and inclusion efforts. It should be the very last stop, right? There are so many other things that need to happen like behind the scenes, right? And in fact, they should be happening behind the scenes, right? You should be doing, you should be implementing new strategy, diversifying your hiring process, learning. You should be doing all of those things without needing to share them anyway. And then afterward, if you really feel inclined to like share your work, that's another thing, but it should be like the last frontier. A lot of folks ask me all the time, well, how do I show that I offer a safe space, that I offer a safe fitness space without virtue signaling, right? So in other words, doing things just for the sake of showing. Like how do I come off as authentic? And my answer is always, if you're like really doing the work, that I can't tell you what it is that you need to do, but if you're really doing whatever it is that you need to do, then that's going to come through in everything else. And it may show up on social media and it may not. But I think like that should be the very, very last step in your process and in your work. Like, do the other stuff first. And then you can talk about it later if you want.
Yeah, like in other words, do the hard work, build the foundation, the icky work that is people don't want to do. Again, as fitness professionals, we tell our clients, do the like actually sleep for longer than 5 hours. Don't just blast out a workout and think it's going to fix everything. It's the same thing, because of social media is the easy one. That's easy. And yeah, and it will show if it's not authentic. I hate that word, but if it's not real, it's so obvious. People can read through that if you haven't done the actual work. So thank you very much. Okay, here's my next question. So what is inclusion? Okay, the word, because a lot of people use it. So really, what is inclusion, and what does that mean to you in the fitness industry? Like, what does an inclusive space actually look and feel like? Carl.
Yeah, so inclusion to me is including people that have been excluded from all walks of life, whether it's religion, whether it's race, whether it's people with disabilities and stuff like that. So you're trying to include everybody, right? And in the fitness industry, even like in gyms and stuff like that, you want to have people that are represented in your facility from every religion, every race, every if you have a disability and things like that, right? So my studio, like I said, I have 8 trainers, 3 other massage therapists, 2 chiropractors, 2 physiotherapists, and I represent the community. We have everybody that works here, right? So I think it's very important to and not do it purposeful, right? But hire people that are right for the job, but you want to represent your community.
Yeah. So in other words, when people walk into that gym, they want to feel seen.
Yes, you want to see everybody, and that's what I have here, right? And but at the same time, you want to be hiring people that are right for the job, not just because, you know what I mean, not just because of their race, basically. So for me, if someone's hiring me, I want them to hire me because I'm good at what I do, right? And I'm better than the other person, right? And just give everyone that fair try to get a certain job, whatever job you're going for.
Gotcha. Okay, Adriana, what about you?
I loved, and I wrote it down when Carl said, represent the community, because that's been something that has like always bothered me in terms of like many aspects of my career. Like when I started out going to Humber in radio school, and I did a project on Black women in radio, and just looking at the demographics of Toronto being over 50% visible minority, but then the radio industry being like 20, if even, and those were just like Flo and G at the time. So it's something that always plagued me, of represent the community. And for me, that would be walking into a yoga studio and just seeing a roster of teachers of different body types, ethnically diverse, different abilities, like Carl said, mentioned as well, different religions, as he mentioned as well, and different gender expressions, and just being greeted with open arms, and just coming in and seeing yourself represented in so many different ways. Because as Portia mentioned before, in the Pilates, bar, and yoga world, tall, skinny, white, able-bodied is kind of the image that's represented. And it's kind of crazy that we go to studios in Toronto and that's still like what most of the teachers look like. When you look at the demographics of Toronto, that doesn't represent the community at all. I mean, and then there's a whole other discussion on like how expensive yoga is and where the studios are located and, you know, things like that. But even looking at the roots of yoga being in India, but yet the representation of it the image that we see is a skinny white woman, usually that has money. And it's just the way that the practice has been colonized. And there's been a big push recently to decolonize the practice and kind of get back to the roots of what it stood for and kind of like representing that accordingly. But yeah, all in all, I think Carl summed it up perfectly, saying represent the community. Like that's like the perfect phrase right there.
Yeah, like walk outside, look around. Look at your community for sure. Okay, so here's my last question. So, and this is a natural flowing one. So, you know, Carl was saying, yes, represent the community, but hire me because I'm actually good at what I do. So how does one then avoid tokenism when trying to help? Okay, so first I'm going to go to Portia on this one.
Yeah, I think that again, this goes back to if you're unclear on this, then hire an expert. Hire somebody who is able to work with you on hiring strategy. Because typically the issue is not that there aren't people out there who are both diverse, you know, in terms of their ethnic background or, you know, in terms of like their intersectionalities, right? But it's just that people aren't doing enough work to find these people. So, you know, there are extremely qualified, overqualified, you know, fitness professionals and different folks of all types of backgrounds, but they're just not getting seen because they don't know the right people or because they're not connected to the right people, right? But they are out there. So it's really, really easy to find not that it's easy, but it takes work and it's very, very doable is what I should say. So if you're really, really struggling with diversifying your candidacy pool, then I would say reach out to a professional to help you change what it is that you're doing, because obviously you don't know what you don't know. So you need some outside help, you know, on that. I have to say though, tokenism is not a huge problem that I come across like with people that I work with when it comes to hiring. It's usually that they just can't find, you know, or initially they can't seem to find the right people. I will, however, see a fair amount of tokenism when it comes to social media, when it comes to marketing and branding, sort of using like one person to represent all of the kind of, you know, all of the, you know, diversity and inclusion efforts at one company. And that I think is avoidable by all the things that we've talked about already today, right? Yeah. You know, look at the community, represent your community, seek out, you know, other people. It just takes more work and it takes changing, you know, the patterns that you're used to, which is very uncomfortable for most of us. But that's what it takes.
Okay. And I just want to again, for the people who might be shy to ask, explain what tokenism is.
Sure. So tokenism is kind of like taking one person, particularly of a marginalized background, to represent everybody and everything, and essentially using them just for that purpose, instead of, you know, the work that they do or their, you know, abilities, etc. Mm-hmm. So it's like saying, I need a Black person for this role. Find me a Black person, as opposed to I need a very qualified person and looks everywhere. And the person I hire might be Black, might be brown. Adriana, what about you?
Personally speaking, if I feel like someone's trying to tokenize me, I call them out, to be honest. At my work, they're like, oh, you want to be a part of this like staff photo? And I'm like, just to show you got one Black person? No, I'm good. And they're like, oh, like help us with like doing like initial interviews like for new candidates or something. And I'm like, but I'm not in HR, I'm in marketing. I got like a lot of marketing things to do, but they just kind of want to show, oh, we're diverse by bringing their one Black person to these like HR focused interviews. So I just called them out and I'm like, no, there's just different ways you can go about this, just like find a good candidate and hire them, find a good candidate for HR to do these interviews with you and hire them, right? So speaking of what like Portia was talking about, including melanated and marginalized folks in your branding, promotional materials, videos, studios, etc., all year round, not just when you need to, or going back to when it's an awareness month, because I definitely notice those things. I'll watch a brand all year, I don't see no melanated person at all, and then February come, boom, oh, now they're showcasing it. So definitely something like that I personally notice and am aware of, and will actively just avoid brands that do that. So just do it all year round. Just make it a natural part of your workflow to, just include different voices and different representation.
And Carl, what about you?
Yeah, a way I think you could avoid tokenism is to make your jobs more visible and appealing to diverse candidates, right? It's hard to avoid it because sometimes it looks like it's on purpose. But I think that's the best way to do it, is make the jobs more diverse and appealing to the different candidate pools.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. This was so great. We ran on time. Amazing. I always feel good when that happens, because we get like very passionate and we're chatting and doing all this things. So I really appreciate it. You guys are so amazing, and we could continue to talk about this forever and ever and ever. And I'm sure you guys have been very busy this month, talking a lot about this. But I do appreciate though very much that that CanFitPro is doing a session on this, and they've been really great in the last year, bringing more awareness about this topic. And I'm just truly honored to be a part of it. So now, for those of you who are watching, we would love if you have any questions, please do not be shy, because here's the rule about a Q&A. If you're wondering something, there's a very good chance that somebody else is wondering the same thing too. So somebody has to be the first one to ask. And so these lovely panelists here are ready to answer. And we do actually have one question in the Q&A right here from Beth. And I will read it out. And if you guys could, I'll choose which one we'll answer first. So Beth, if I realize something I said could have felt like a microaggression to a racialized individual, what is a caring approach to bring it up? To apologize and talk through it without making their burden, or anything else? Like, do you guys have any suggestions?
Sure.
Oh, I will ask. Yeah, sorry, Portia, go.
Okay. I think so. First of all, I think if you're asking that question, like we're already in the right space, like you're already on the right track. I cannot speak for everybody. I can just certainly yes, few. I certainly can't speak for like every Black person in the world or racialized person. I would say I've never been burdened by an apology that I can think of. Like that is never a burden to me. A burden would be asking me, like, when I'm not being compensated, how can I fix this issue? How can I apologize to this person? That is a burden, like outside of this sort of context. But I have never been burdened by someone offering me an apology and saying like, just reaching out and saying, hey, I realized, I was thinking about this thing that I said to you, and I realized it could have come off as harmful, or it could have come off in this way. And I just really wanted to say, I'm sorry, and I would love to have a conversation with you if you are open to it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And I have never been burdened by someone's apology ever. If anything, I feel relief.
Yes. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Carl, what about you?
Yeah, I think Portia just summed it up pretty good. It's if you're butting heads with somebody, or you think that you offended somebody, right, in any walk of life or any type of conversation, it's great to go back and say, hey, Samantha, I think I may have offended you yesterday of something of what I said. I apologize for that, and own it, right? And I think whoever you're apologizing to will really appreciate the apology, basically.
Mhm. Yeah, an apology goes a long way, a long way. And if it's really upsetting you, I mean, that is because it's your heart telling you that you need to do something about it, and the sense of relief you will get from somebody. Adriana?
Honestly, I think Portia summed it up perfectly. It's never a burden, like to get an apology, or even, to go back and be like, oh, I felt like I did this, like, I'm sorry if I offended you anyway. And then, yeah, allow that person to be like, you didn't, if you didn't, or be like, yeah, thank you for apologizing. So yeah, I think Portia summarized it really well.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I feel, especially just with like the state of the world the past couple of years, like people are going from one extreme to the next, or either not, like they're so defensive and they're not, or people are really making that extra effort to be more mindful and sensitive and apologizing and I guess connecting with their own, like we talked about, biases and their own difficulties and their acceptance that they need to learn, and the changes are needed. I mean, we all need to learn more and grow. And I've learned a ton, because me being raised by a white woman and not having my Black father in my life, I didn't learn very much. So have had to do my own research. And as a biracial person to admit that out loud, oh my goodness, it was scary as anything. But it was great though to have other people come to me and say, you know what, it's okay, and me too, and me too, and me too. And so it's all right to admit that, maybe you've made a mistake and you're learning, and that's what we all want to hear. Again, regardless of race or anything like that, we all want to just be seen and heard and appreciated. So I think that's how we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much. You guys were all amazing. I really hope that the participants, not the panelists, we're the panelists, really enjoyed it. And please connect with Adriana, Portia, and Carl, myself. If you want to continue this conversation, we'd love to continue to help you learn and grow. And because this topic is not going anywhere, ever. Well, we're at least the three of us are going to make sure that never happens, or the four of us, the three of us, I can't even count. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking. So everybody have a wonderful day. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. This was amazing. Thank you. And thank you very much for joining us. Bye, guys.